We're going to look at the human circulatory system for this lesson. If you look at the previous lesson and notes that I provided for you last week, something different from this one. And I guess you're not so new to this topic. You've learned that in, what is in grade 9, in your grade 9 science textbook. You will see this in pages 181 to 3 up to maybe 9, I guess. So maybe after this lesson, you can go back to your textbook and read and take notes if you like. If possible, we're going to meet next week. If otherwise, we're going to continue this week, and maybe I'll have to deliver all my lessons. Okay, so for circulatory system, we know what circulatory system is. Sometimes we hear people saying a transport system, or another fancy way of saying circulatory system or transport system. People say cardiovascular system. Okay, so we're going to identify several things here. Okay, I've used 2 links here to collect all my notes, just in case if you like, you can take note. Our objectives for today 1 will be to identify parts of the circulatory system. We all know that there are 3 main parts of the circulatory system. 1, the heart. 2, the blood vessels. And 3, the blood itself. Okay. The next objective that we're going to look at is describe the function of the parts of the circulatory system. We're going to describe the functions of the heart, the blood, and the blood vessels. I'm given only 20 minutes, so if I speed, you have to speed up with me. Okay, here we go. The heart is composed of very muscular cells, and these muscles that makes up the heart is called cardiac muscle. The next thing, the blood. I guess we have looked at blood in one of our lessons last time. And the next one, the blood vessels. There are 3 types of blood vessels. 1, the arteries, 2, the veins, and the last one should be the capillaries. Okay, yes, a human being that has heart, the blood running through the veins and the arteries and the capillaries. Okay, the blue color represents deoxygenated blood running through the veins, and the red color represents oxygenated blood running through the arteries. Hope you're following through. I'm moving on. A simple warm-up question. Oops. In what ways is the circulatory system like a transportation system? Trucks, buses, cars? Just a question for you to think about. The vocabularies, the common words that we're going to find out about in this lesson. 1, the cardiovascular system. Number 2, the pulmonary system or circulation. Number 3, the systemic circulation. Number 4, arteries, veins, capillaries, and finally the blood. Cardiovascular system. Okay, it refers to organs and tissues that transport essential materials to blood or body cells. And another major function that it plays is it transport also the waste substances that the cells excrete. One of the waste substances that the cell excrete as a result of cellular respiration is carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide is transported out from the cells, carried by the blood, transported via the blood vessels into the heart and out through the to the lungs and out through the mouth and nose. Okay, the next one, pulmonary system, flow of blood from the heart to the lungs and back to the heart. Okay, I guess you have heard people saying the human transport system is sometimes referred to as the double circulation. Okay, the reason why it is referred to as the double circulation is because the human transport system actually has pulmonary circuit and a systemic circuit. Okay, the pulmonary circuit involves the flow of blood between the heart and the lungs. You take note, between the heart and the lungs. While for the systemic circuit involves the flow of blood between the rest of the body and the heart, excluding the lungs. The systemic circuit involves the flow of blood within the heart, within the rest of the body, plus the heart, excluding the lungs. Okay? The next thing is, here's a diagram here that shows circuits, the systemic circuit and the pulmonary circuit. Okay? The pulmonary circuit involves the flow of blood between the heart and the lungs. The systemic circuit involves the flow of blood in the rest of the body and the heart, excluding the lungs. All right, let's move on. Okay, the vessels one, the arteries, veins, capillaries. We know that the arteries are involved in transporting oxygenated blood. And these are vessels that carry blood away from the heart to other parts of the body. The veins are responsible for transporting the oxygenated blood from all the body parts, rest of the body, to the heart and to the lungs. By the way, you will add that there's only one strange artery that does not carry oxygenated blood. Instead it carries the oxygenated blood, and that artery is known as the pulmonary artery. The pulmonary artery, all arteries are responsible for transporting oxygenated blood. However, pulmonary artery is the only artery in our body that transports deoxygenated blood from the heart to the lungs. Now, likewise for veins, which are responsible for transporting the oxygenated blood, there's one strange vein called pulmonary vein, oxygenated blood from the lungs into the heart. Okay, pulmonary artery and pulmonary vein. Capillaries are very, very tiny, unlike veins and arteries. Tubes that carry substances from the arteries and get substances exchanged. Good substances get into the cells and bad substances get into the blood that has to be carried to the heart and to the lungs. All right, let's move on.
Moving on.
Okay, here is a diagram representing artery, vein, and the capillary bed. Okay, arterioles are very tiny branches of arteries that connects larger arteries with the capillary bed, capillaries. Veins connected by the venules to the capillary bed. Capillary bed is the region where substances get exchanged. Okay. If you look at these two blood vessels here, arteries are quite much more bigger and muscular in nature than the veins. And if you look closely into the two vessels here, the arteries do not possess a structure called valve, while the veins, because they transport blood that is low in oxygen, deoxygenated blood, and the blood that is transported with very, very low pressure, this tiny flap-like structure is there to prevent the backflow of blood. Okay. Can I move on? Yes.
Cold. Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh my God. You shouldn't be unmuting yourself.
But you asked me.
Okay. Let's again look at this diagram here. I talked about valve. If you look at the vein, it has these flap-like structures which prevent the backflow of blood, while in artery does not contain any valve. Okay, why? The reason is because in artery it transports oxygenated blood that is full of energy and pressure, while in vein, in all the veins, they transport deoxygenated blood that is very, very low in pressure, very sluggish. So they have a tendency to get reversed. So these structures here, these small structures here, are there to prevent the backflow of blood. Can I move on? Just one review question before we proceed.
Yes.
What is the correct path to the circulatory system which describes the passage of blood originating in the left leg? You just have to choose only one answer. Oh.
You must
A, vena cava, left atrium, the right atrium, lungs, left ventricle, right ventricle, aorta. I suppose this answer is wrong. B, vena cava, right atrium, left atrium. I guess it's wrong.
C.
Yeah. Vena cava, left atrium, left ventricle, lungs, right atrium, right ventricle. No, wrong. D, I guess that's the correct answer. Vena cava, right atrium, right ventricle, and then to lungs, to left atrium, left ventricle, and finally to aorta and rest of the body. Okay. What's in the blood? There's so many things.
Wait. What? What's the answer? Answer
Answer
is
would
B.
be, what is in the blood? So many things in the blood.
Oh, okay. Blood.
Digested food, nutrients.
Um,
Food that we take in, get digested and absorbed, and
white blood cells,
white
hormones,
blood.
then
Red blood cells, they're responsible for transporting oxygen.
oxygen.
Oxygen is carried around by red blood cells hooked up by the hemoglobin. And carbon dioxide, which is a waste, a byproduct of a reaction, cellular reaction in the cells of the body. Plasma is a yellowish substance in which all these substances float in together with water. Hormones are chemical messengers that transports from one part of the body to the other. Platelets are cell fragments. They're actually not cells, but cell fragments because they do not really possess cell organs. Waste, such as urine, and white blood cells, they're responsible for defending us against any invading bacteria, germs, illness, sickness. Okay, so these are the things, stuff that are found in the blood. The next thing is we're going to look at all these things that we mentioned: 50% water, 45% red blood cells, 4% plasma with substances like food nutrients, hormones, 1% leukocytes, and platelets. If you carry out a centrifuge blood cell in a test tube like this, then you will have something like this. 50% water on the bottom, 45% red blood
My
cells,
blood type is A.
white blood cells, and platelets, and eventually plasma substances, the next.
Percent. Oh,
Okay, one special feature about the red blood cells.
we will see.
Another special feature about the red blood cells: they do not contain cell organelles. The reason why they do not contain cell organelles is because they allow for providing space to carry out, to have enough space to have hemoglobin, so that hemoglobin can hook up as many oxygen molecules as it can. Transporters of oxygen, carbon dioxide. Red blood cells lack a nutrients containing hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is a, what is it?
A red pigment.
Iron, right?
Red pigment in the
Actually, okay, and it is this shape so that it allows for maximum space that it can to accommodate enough hemoglobin and also enough oxygen molecules. Red blood cells are produced in red bone marrow of ribs, humerus, femur, sternum, and other long bones in your body. Okay, and they live for 120 days. That's actually, I think, 3 to 4 months. And all red blood cells are destroyed in the liver and the spleen. The ones that are broken down in the liver, they actually are converted to something called bile. I don't know if you've come across this before. Okay.
Yes.
The next slide, white blood cells, and we're looking at microorganisms. we came across this sites or
League.
cells, and their main function is to fight infections, diseases, germs. Okay, and they attack foreign substances. They're less abundant, they're large, and particularly they do not really have a permanent shape, irregular shapes, depending on the type of function that they carry out, particular function, and some live for months, just a few days maybe, and several types all contain nutrients. Platelets are cell fragments actually, that the main function of these platelets are for blood clotting. What happens here is that on an open cut or wound, a substance called thromboplastin is released by the platelets, and this thromboplastin now converts something known as protothrombin into what is known as thrombin. And now for blood clotting, this thrombin now converts a protein called fibrinogen into fibrin, which causes the clot on an open cut. The clot now prevents further loss of blood. Okay, so that's what actually happens during blood clotting. I hope you have collected all those fancy terms here. I'll stop here, and maybe in our next lesson we'll continue to the few slides that are left.